Welcome back to A Life in Chapters, a podcast about books, journaling, and building a creative business that truly fits your life. I'm Alison Wood, and this is episode 16, How to Build a Reading Habit You'll Actually Love. Today I want to talk about reading, not reading as a goal, not reading as a competition, but reading as a practice, something that becomes woven into the shape of your life. So often we're asked questions like, how many books did you read this year? We see challenges online. We scroll TikTok and notice how many titles other people seem to be racing through. It can start to feel like reading is a numbers game, something to achieve and measure rather than something to enjoy. But reading is more than a tally. It's something that can mark time, carry us through seasons, and give us space to reflect and recharge. So today I want to explore what it means to build a reading habit you'll actually love, one that feels like a joy, not a chore. We'll talk about seasonal reading, about daily rhythms, about the books that stay with you, and about how to create a practice that feels personal and meaningful. For the last few years, I've taken part in the Goodreads challenge. I usually set my number at 52, a book a week, and there was a time when I used to feel pressure if I didn't quite hit that mark. It felt like I was falling behind, like I wasn't reading enough. But over time, that shifted. Now I see it less as a deadline and more as an aspiration. I like that it gives me a record of what I've read, a list I can look back on, a kind of time capsule of my reading life. It doesn't matter if I read 52 or 25 or 10, at least they're all recorded and I can revisit them. I'll be honest, sometimes I do feel like a slow reader when I see TikToks of people flying through hundreds of books in a year. But when that thought comes up, I remind myself that we're all in different places. Reading isn't a competition. And actually, I love hearing about what other people have read. I enjoy their excitement, their recommendations. It doesn't take away from my own reading life. It adds to it. And that shift from pressure to perspective has changed how I approach reading. It's not about how fast I get through the stack. It's about how the books make me feel and how they shape my days. One of the ways reading marks time for me is through the seasons. Books don't just tell stories, they become woven into the texture of when and where we read them. Now for me, murder mysteries are my year-round companions, but they come into their own in autumn and the cozier months. There's something about curling up on a grey evening, rain on the window, blanket over my knees, and sinking into a good mystery. The atmosphere outside and the suspense on the page seem to belong together. Other times it's the books of summer that stay with me, a paperback tucked into a beach bag, the memory of long evenings where the light lingers and you tell yourself just one more chapter. When we think about our reading lives in seasons, something shifts. It stops being about how many pages we've turned and starts being about how books become part of memory. You'll always remember the mystery you devoured one autumn weekend, or the novel you carried on a summer holiday. Those stories anchor you to times and places. And that to me is the beauty of reading. It's not just about moving forward through pages, it's about weaving books into the fabric of our lives. Now picture this. It's a late afternoon on a windy Saturday in October. The rain has set in, steady and soft against the windows. You put the kettle on and switch on a small lamp. The room warms with that honeyed light that makes everything feel closer. You pick up a favourite murder mystery, the kind with a village green, a whisper of secrets, and a detective who notices what others miss. You settle under a blanket. The first chapter draws you in. You pause for tea, then read again, turning the pages more slowly than usual because you do not want to hurry the mood. Outside, a car hisses past on wet roads. Inside, the suspect list grows. You stop to stretch, then read a little more after dinner. The story becomes part of the evening. When you finally set the book down, You realize that the weather, the light, the slow cup of tea, and the story have all braided together. That is what I mean by reading as the marker of time. It is not just the plot, it is the small details that make a night in autumn feel like itself. Those details stay with you long after the final page. So how do we build a reading habit that feels joyful rather than dutiful? For me, it comes down to rhythm, small intentional moments where books are simply part of the day. In the mornings, I spend about 20 minutes with a cup of tea. Some days I journal, other days I read. That first half hour of the day feels like mine, before emails and work and noise creep in. Sometimes it's a chapter, sometimes just a few pages, but it sets a tone. At night, if I can keep my eyes open, I'll read another chapter before bed. It helps me slow down, step away from screens, and settle. And on weekends, especially Sundays, I give myself more space. An hour in the morning, cup of coffee in hand, no rush to be anywhere. That's when I really sink in. None of this is complicated. It doesn't require hours. It's not about reading faster. It's about building little anchors of time, a cup of tea, a chapter before sleep, an hour on a Sunday. And because these times feel like treats, not obligations, the habit sticks. It's not a resolution I grit my teeth through. It's a rhythm I look forward to. Here are some small practical shifts that can make a reading habit feel effortless. Pair reading with a cue, so it could be tea in the morning, a seat by the same lamp at night, a short train ride, a commute to work. The cue tells your brain it is reading time. Keep a book within reach, one by the bed, one in your bag, one on your phone or Kindle app. If a book is visible, you will open it. Set a tiny minimum. 2 pages count. Often 2 pages can become 10, but even 2 build the identity of someone who reads. Use gentle bookmarks. Slip in a note card with a quote you love. It makes the act of returning feel special. Close apps first. Put your phone on airplane mode for 10 minutes. Protect that quiet. Try audio for walks and chores. Audiobooks can turn a daily walk or a tidy of the kitchen into story time. Allow DNF without guilt. If a book is not right for you right now, set it aside. Protect the joy. Stack genres. Alternate a mystery with a memoir or a short story collection with a long novel, so your mood always has a match. These are tiny shifts, but tiny shifts are how a habit grows without force. When I think about the books that matter most to me, they're not always the ones I read quickly. They're the ones that stayed with me long after I closed the cover. One recent example is Miranda Hart's memoir, I Haven't Been Entirely Honest with You. It wasn't about racing through chapters, it was about sitting with her words, her honesty, her humour, her vulnerability. It's the kind of book you carry with you even when you're not reading it. That's the power of reading when it's not about the numbers. It's about the connection you feel, the resonance a story or a voice leaves behind. Some books are companions for a season. Some mark a turning point in your thinking. Some simply make you laugh at just the right time. Those are the ones that matter, and often you don't know which books those will be until you give yourself the chance to slow down and savour them. Over time, I've found that having a gentle monthly rhythm helps too. I don't follow a strict list or schedule. I go with what I feel in the mood for and what's in my to-be-read pile. Sometimes it's a novel I've been saving. Sometimes it's a non-fiction book I've been curious about. Sometimes it's whatever happens to catch my attention at the library or in a friend's recommendation. And now, with my Patreon book club, that rhythm takes on another layering. Going forward, we'll be choosing our books together from a shortlist. It feels like a conversation, a shared journey. There's something special about knowing you're reading alongside others, even if you're miles apart. That's part of why I see reading as more than an individual habit. It can also be a community practice, something that connects us, sparks conversation, and makes books come alive in new ways. Our book club is meant to be light and enjoyable, not like homework. Each month I share a short list that suits the mood of the season. You vote, we pick one together, and then we read at our own pace. I encourage simple notes in the margins if you love to annotate, or a few lines in a journal. What surprised you? A moment that made you smile? A sentence you wanted to copy? When we meet, we begin with feelings before themes. What did the book feel like? Cosy, electric, thoughtful. Then we move to questions. Which character stayed with you? What would you ask the author? There is space for busy weeks and slower ones. If you finish early, bring a favourite line to share. If you're halfway through, come anyway. The point is the shared experience, the sense that stories are better when we talk about them. Next month, I will share the shortlist ahead of time so you can browse or borrow. If you love the idea of reading in company, this is your open invitation to join us. If you like to think about your own reading life, here are a few prompts you can use for journaling or just quiet reflection. What book feels like summer to you? Which one feels like autumn? When during the day do you most enjoy reading? And how could you carve out more space for that? Which books have stayed with you emotionally, not because of speed, but because of how they make you feel? If you took away numbers and challenges, what would a reading habit that feels joyful look like in your life? How might you share your reading through a club, a conversation, or just lending a book to make it part of community as well as personal practice? Take your time with these, there's no rush. Like reading itself, reflection is best when it's unhurried. And if you'd like those prompts again, just head to the show notes where they're linked. Of course, even with the best intentions, it's easy to fall out of the habit. Life gets busy, screens demand attention, fatigue takes over. There are times when I've gone days or even weeks without picking up a book, and when that happens, it's tempting to feel guilty. To think, I'm failing at my reading habit. But here's what I've learned. The point isn't perfection, the point is return. Every time you come back to a book, whether after a day or a month, you're re-choosing reading as part of your life. That's what matters. So if you find yourself drifting, don't punish yourself. Just pick up where you left off. Pour the tea, open the book, and remember why you love this in the first place. Also, if you are really not enjoying a book, put it down and leave it for another time, or simply decide not to return to it. There is no shame in not finishing a book. Sometimes it will call us again in another season of life. Other times it's simply not for us. So today we've looked at reading as something deeper than numbers, a habit you can actually love. For me, that looks like murder mysteries in autumn, mornings with tea and a book, the occasional late-night chapter, and a Sunday hour that feels like a gift. It looks like memoirs that linger, like Miranda Hart's. And it looks like a book club where reading is shared rather than counted. If you'd like to create your own reading habit, start small. 10 minutes here, a chapter there. Let books become part of your seasons, your routines, your memories. And if you enjoyed today's episode, the best way you can support the podcast is by subscribing or leaving a quick review wherever you listen. It only takes a minute, but it helps more people discover the show, and it means I can keep creating more episodes like this for you. Thank you, as always, for listening, for reflecting with me, and for letting books be part of your own life in ways that feel joyful and true.